Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Ramosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Lost Signals Discusses and Reviews Film and Television. I, of course, remain your 8th grade teacher tonight, Scott Thurlow. I'm here with my students, Jonathan Ian Manzer.
About 500th grade now.
Stephen Amosi.
And I can't stand up and go to the chalkboard right now.
And Chris Morgan.
The dog ate my homework.
Yep, and we're doing sort of like, not a retrospective per se, but just films that came out that were possibly like on the Oscar bubbles, but that were supposed to be quality, didn't quite make it, and 8th grade was one of the ones that was in the mix, and tonight we'll be doing that one, which is a Bo Burhnam joint, if you will. He wrote and directed it, so if you're familiar with him, he's a comedian, pretty damn solid, in fact. So, with that, I'll go to E for the logline.
Lady Bird, 4 years earlier.
Yep, exactly. Lady Bird, middle grade style, indeed. And Steve-O, why don't you go on with the plot?
So this is a film that follows an 8th grade girl named Kayla through her 8th grade experience.
I think it's the last week. Like, she's about to go to high school, right?
It's the very end of the year. Yeah. She is painfully awkward. And it's just her experiencing a lot of the, like most people are in 8th grade, are painfully awkward.
The shit you experience when you're 8th grade.
Yeah, it's just her experiencing, going through, trying to figure out who she is, in a bunch of different, kind of vignettes of what.
Like, they're not quite vignettes, but, she goes from situation to situation, and again, dealing with it at being 13, going into high school.
Almost vignette-like.
Yeah.
Kind of, but,
going back and forth between her trying to be more courageous in her
confident,
dealings with her fellow kids, and her kind of how she deals with the situation with her dad's an only father and living with him and her being kind
just
of
navigating the social
kind of
structure.
being a little shit to him because that's what you are when you're a kid that age. And
exactly.
It all kind of comes together at the end where she realizes that all these situations that she's been through have been painfully awkward. Some of them painfully awkward, some of them really nice. But always usually ending with an awkward moment.
Yeah.
Have all been. She's trying to teach herself the lessons that she has been, or that her experiences have been.
Sort of grow into herself a bit as she approaches the next stage in her career.
There's a really nice scene with her father at the end where she kind of burns a box full of the paraphernalia of who she was and starts a new one of who she wants to be. And that's pretty much what happens in the movie.
It's very slice of life stuff, as you kind of like, so go on.
I kind of like, she has a YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, what kind of narcissist thinks that putting a video up on YouTube to no one,
basically of just themselves talking.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the cool thing was she's this shy, but she was projecting who she wants to be on the YouTube thing.
Yeah, but at least she has excuse of being 13.
I mean, at least she's not a bunch of narcissists talking about movies. I mean, Christ.
But and also the funny thing is she has one view on each of them or less, much like us as well.
No views on a couple.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I understand.
So I relate to that.
I feel her pain. Yeah.
Sure. But I mean, what do you guys think about giving it in terms of score?
This is really, it's really funny because if you had asked me halfway through the film, I could have been, we got to the end of the film and I'm like, I have no fucking idea about pretty much anything. I was originally thinking of it too. All right. I was originally thinking of it too because the first half hour felt like a month. And I think it was kind of by design, and I was kind of wondering if it was pacing.
I see what you mean.
Like the first monologue, I was just like, oh my God, I can't, I didn't think I was going to deal with this, but
Chris couldn't even.
I couldn't even.
I really liked that first monologue.
But the thing is, once you put it into context, you couldn't have had the monologue be any different. because it really was a nice juxtaposition. You think this girl's going to be, vivacious and really and it turns out like her on-air persona, to contrast with her off-air persona. The middle, it just kept getting more and more awkward, but the last half hour was just filled with catharsis. And it wasn't an over the top with a bow on it happy ending. It was very real. You have your victories, you have your defeats, and you kind of have to sort everything out. As at least I did in 8th grade. This is a really flashbacks a go-go on this one. So like I said, I was originally going to give it a 2. I wasn't sure if the pacing problems were by design or whatever. So I'm going to throw it back to you guys.
All right, allow me to address that because I kind of felt that it had the same kind of feeling throughout watching it as well. But like, I didn't think it was paced poorly, but it could have maybe been tightened up a bit. But I'm kind of leaning towards a 3 because, yeah, like you said, like it's the awkward shit that you deal with when you're a kid of this age. And I thought it was handled pretty well. Like, yeah, it's very sort of uncomfortable and cringy at times, but definitely by design, like on purpose, because that's how it is and feels like to be that, in that situation. So I definitely, of course, like related to it a bit. And I thought it was a pretty strong, like, structure throughout, even if it had maybe a little bit moments of a bit dragging here and there. I feel like that's a nitpick a little bit. So what do you think, E?
It's very hard for me to judge a movie because it took me 2 days to watch this, and I fast forward through sections of it.
But I mean, that's just who you are.
Yes, and that's the thing is,
Sure.
I don't know if I like this.
I was so tempted to fast forward over certain parts.
I know
totally
it's,
get
it's
that.
painful to watch, but again, by design. To bring this to Vertigo for a second, this discussion we were saying that like the rapey Jimmy Stewart in that is very uncomfortable to watch, but it's supposed to be. Right. You're not supposed to like this character. With this, I am feeling like it was such an affecting portrayal and woven narrative that I was legitimately feeling her pain throughout this. That she didn't want to be there. I didn't want to watch her not want to be there. And I have to say, it's very effective on that. Is it great to watch? No, but did it meet what it was intending to? Yes.
Yeah, I think that might have convinced me because I was going into it with 3, and I haven't handed out a lot of 3s recently, but I think in this case I might because I thought it held together very nicely. And yeah, as we said, like, I don't mean to repeat it, but just by nature, the film and the story and the plot is designed to be that way. So when you're feeling uncomfortable, it wants you to. And like, maybe, yeah, like you said, Chris, maybe it's giving you flashbacks of what it was like when you were 13 or 14 or whatever. But I thought it was overall structured very nicely, and the narrative made perfect sense and had the conclusion I thought it should have, like you said, without being saccharine or anything like that. So I'm looking at a pretty solid 3.
I mean, it felt like a complete thought.
Yeah, exactly.
And although I've never been a young girl, I have been in 8th grade, and I felt very real to. But although it's weird because like I don't know what the modern day teen experience.
I think I'm going to address that in a second.
But a very good job of interweaving that with the narrative.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's. I think I'm going to give it a 3. Every part of this movie makes me feel something for Kayla, and for this main character who is just trying to do the best you can, and like
that's all any kid is doing.
All the doubts that you have when you're a kid that age were so on display in this movie, and so perfectly shown in just a variety of ways. And yeah, I mean, I thought every scene was building towards a full picture of this character that Bo Burnham's trying to show us through the script and his directing. And
yeah, man,
I'm going to give it a 3 for that.
All right.
Yeah,
does that convince you either way?
Yeah, you convinced me. I'm going to give it a 3.
All right.
And so is that all 3s?
What do you lie?
I'm going to give it a 3 as well because I'm going to save this for themes, but nonetheless a 3.
Okay, fair enough. Well, speaking of themes, Chris, why don't you go on with that?
This is this really was a flashback because 8th grade was one of the worst years of my life, or my young life. There was one day where like part of the grade turned against me, and it's just like I had a confrontation. This is great.
Every single day is worse than the day before it, which means every single day that we see you is the worst day of your life.
Yeah.
Chris's 8th grade was Lord of the Flies.
It wasn't too bad. Well, like one of the guys, and I wasn't sure if he was the ringleader of this or not, but I confronted him. I'm like, dude, and it turned out our vice principal was taking a shit, so he came out of the stall like when. But the whole thing is, my whole point is that's I had to throw that in it. But
did you?
Yeah.
But anyways.
Let him go. Let him speak.
No, but what I'm saying is this
we'll never get through it.
No, this thing was a perfect transition because, I mean, once I ditched 8th grade, I started becoming into my own, and that's where it looks like she is. So, to me, thematically, it brought a lot of that back. So, the themes in this thing are growth. Like coming into her own. I mean, she confronted those girls, those little bitches, and she didn't look at them. Well, flashbacks, dude, PTS, and she didn't look at them. But when she walked away, she knew she did right. And she smiled and kind of looked up because at first you think she's going to chase after the boy, and then the whole thing when she burned the boxes,
her 6th grade like time capsule thing,
and then moved on. So it was a great. God, this is gonna sound trite, but this actually deserves like a coming of age story.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, you can't, I don't think, label it anything different because it's precisely that.
So thematically, it just goes into, I think we all talked about this, well, at least he and I felt that it really captures the trauma of that transition and the awkwardness of that transition. And I don't really know any more than to say that. It's just like a person transitioning from one stage into the other very realistically. And I like the fact that she actually tried to go out. She was invited by the high school students and tried to go out, and she didn't quite fit in there. And then she kind of found out where she fits, like hanging out with Gabe, coming to terms with her dad. And it just...
Rick and Morty brings everyone together.
And Rick and Morty brings everybody
together. There's a nice
together.
inclusion there for sure.
So, I just, in terms of themes, I can just see it as a true coming of age story. It's a person developing into not who they're going to become, but how they're going to approach the next stage.
Right, they're going through the process, of course.
Yeah.
Goody.
When I was in 8th grade, it was at lunch on Valentine's Day, and my school was running a thing where they had like, you can send cookies to people and like your crushes and whatnot. And a girl approached me, who's like, Jonathan Manzer, do you, I'm like, yeah. It's like, stuff I knew, like, oh, I got one of these like cookies, like, awesome.
It's getting all pumped up.
And she goes like, oh wait, no one would ever send a cookie to you, and just walked away. And I'm like,
man.
Wow,
kids are dicks at that age.
Shattered me.
You guys, my school made it more awkward. You could send either a white or a yellow or a red carnation.
That is more awkward.
More flowers. Yeah.
But nonetheless, onto the themes of this. So I'm gonna have to compare this to Lady Bird as I did in the.
I think it's almost unavoidable. I did it like almost instinctively.
Well, the thing is, I love Lady Bird. It's one of my favorite movies that I've seen in a while, and I like that because it was the growth of a teenager into an adult. This is the growth of an awkward child into an awkward teenager. And it's less interesting to me and more painful because, of course, it's a painful transition for almost anyone. Even the characters she admired and they were going through their own awkward teenage phase.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, it's also about identity quite a bit. That like she has an online persona which is completely different than her in-person persona, and the idea of dealing with the personal anxiety when it comes to dealing with people face on versus and I think this is really where Bo Burhnam comes in. His identity as a comedian and a television,
it's public face versus his private.
Exactly, public versus private, and it's a fascinating look at all of that. So I have to think it's a very strong one.
Yeah. I mostly agree. Like, yes, of course, the coming of age, like factors, like the aspects you've seen in many movies, I thought were well done, portrayed here. But one thing I thought was like more interesting, like I mean, I mentioned it to Steve-O because we were watching it together. Like, it opens up with her doing her YouTube videos, And like technology, like we didn't have this shit. Like this obviously will date us. Yeah, we're older, all of us here. So we didn't like, but they address it even within the film. We're like, hey, when you were in 5th grade, you had Twitter, you had Instagram, and all this shit.
We had dial-up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, I called my best friend, on a fucking landline if we're gonna exchange like 8th grade war stories and shit.
Computers didn't exist when Chris was in 8th grade.
No, there actually was dial-up and a BBS. We used to a local BBS. Of course, it was the green monochrome.
Oh,
thing.
I love that.
No one is going to know what you're talking about, man.
No, I know exactly.
Well, that's kind of the point. We're like, hey, is there internet? Yeah, they're building it now. But,
Al Gore was.
but no,
working
like
on it
I'm
at the
serious.
time.
Like think
Building
about
a series
like
of tubes.
in a serious point. Like think of it how like we just said. You're almost always awkward at that age, regardless. But in our modern age, in the 2000s and so forth, then you have to deal with all the fucking social media that comes along with that, which puts even more pressure on. Like, this is a serious thing for a second. Think of how many articles you've seen where like 12-year-old, 13-year-old commit suicide because of online bullying and stuff like that.
Right.
Like that's some very serious, hardcore shit to address, which wasn't a factor for when we personally were younger, but it is contained in the film here.
And I actually was waiting for that. I'm sorry.
I was saying, what's worse? To have 0 views or to
just have just abuse
hate?
spit at you. Yeah, man. Like it sucks either way. Of course, like it's a harsh thing to have to deal with, and it's just a factor that wasn't quite that we had to deal with personally, but since it is now in real life. It's addressed, I think, quite well in the film. In addition to all the things that you just said about becoming a person and her having a channel that has no views, but at least she sort of feels a bit more comfortable and confident doing it versus how she interacts with people in face to face. So I thought all that stuff was very nicely woven throughout. It was ingrained in her character, and I thought it was very believable throughout. So I have to give it a lot of credit on the theme front here.
It was a true story. I mean, there's a lot of truth in it. It wasn't
Right. It felt very natural and organic.
True story.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all three of those points. I was going to mention the proliferation of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have no, and take it with a grain of salt. I don't think that kids these days are like a ton more likely to commit suicide than they were when we were
not
growing
any
up.
more vicious, but because of that, the technology attached to it, I think. So go on. Sorry.
I mean, if you think about cyberbullying, I mean, the bullying is actually coming into your own home as opposed to going to the schoolyard and putting up with it there.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. Like how things have changed since even you guys were in high school.
Yeah, that's correct. So
sorry.
Anyway, yeah. So it is the idea of like instead of watching TV before you go to bed, like we did, or reading a book or something, you are on Instagram. You gotta it's like basically homework.
Social homework almost. Yeah.
And him going into that and showing, you have the popular, basically everybody at some point in this, every main character at some point in this is ignoring someone else by looking at their phone or like whatever. And it happens all the time, even with me or my friends. Like sometimes you're just fucking scrolling through Facebook instead of or Instagram or whatever instead of
I just ignore you in person.
What's that? But not like certainly while you take a drink, it's certainly more pronounced because of that. Because of the nature and because of the advancement of technology.
Yeah.
Back in my day,
I give it a 1.
everyone had a Nokia phone, the block phones, and there's only one hall in my middle school that got cell reception. So everyone with the phones were.
I didn't have a fucking cell phone until college, so I don't know. But
Yeah, me neither, actually.
All I'm saying is that I just think it's interesting that because that's the how we've the march of technology, that now children of that age, kids of that age, have to deal with that as well as the regular social pressures that you'll be dealing with anyways.
And I just found out that no one uses Facebook anymore. This is very upsetting.
Oh, the kids don't. The kids don't like it. It's because all their parents and shit are on Facebook. Would you use Facebook? The reason we used Facebook is because it was the only place that our parents weren't.
I defriended my parents. It's easy.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, what's even more awkward is like the parents of some of my friends are like friend requests. I'm like, dude, no.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm saying is I thought it was very nicely woven. Again, very realistic, at least to me, to my reaction to it, because of that fact, and again, just the coming of age tale in general.
What I look forward to is how dated this movie will be in 10 years from now, when none of the
people
tech in there.
They'll be like
That's the point. Like Dazed and Confused.
It'll
be
be
the same
like,
thing. And I still love Dazed and Confused.
I
Sure.
don't.
It'll be like
All right.
Futurama, the iPhone, where you have the little projection.
Sure.
That-
But anyway, I think that means we're all giving themes A1, it
Yeah.
seems. All right. Well, that'll bring it to me with antagonist, which I think we sort of talked a lot just now because of the nature of the story. It's dealing with growing up, if you will, like dealing with transitioning from 8th grade to high school and like just who you are. You certainly are developed a bit, but your personality is not full at 13. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're still figuring out who you are and all the social pressures again that come along, trying to be cool, having a crush at school, like all this stuff. And again, exacerbated, if you will, by all the surrounding technology that now goes along with all that. So sure, like Kayla is very awkward because she feels pressured by all this stuff. She feels sort of again outside the norm, and she's even, I think early on she's voted most quiet, like she doesn't talk at school, but when she's doing her YouTube
What
channel,
a cruel.
yeah, like superlative. Like
seriously.
there's no reason for that. You're right, but it's like something like we had that same kind of shit at least in my school as well.
Most acne or something like that.
Yeah,
It feels
like biggest jackass or whatever. Like sure,
but that's class clown.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I lost actually in 8th grade for again doing war stories.
You'd win it
But-
right now, though.
Yeah, from beyond the grave, I won. But no, like I mean, there's no like one character that's. I guess you could say Kennedy, like and quotes the rich bitch is the popular girl is like at odds with her, but it's not like they're constantly in struggle. It's just like that's just a character that everyone has had that person like that click at school at that age, I would think. So like it's again the social pressures that come along with just what you're doing and who you are at that point and trying to figure yourself out on top of the technology aspect. So I thought it was very well done. I certainly felt and sympathized a bit, more than a bit throughout with her, what she's dealing with and who and what situations and so forth. Like the mall scene was like probably one of the things that we've all dealt with as well.
When
So-
her dad shows up.
Yeah, she's hanging out with her. Like she befriends the high schooler, or like she's, what is it? Basically, she tags along with a high schooler to like get prepared, and then that Olivia was her name, invites her like, hey, come hang out with my friends at the mall. And so her dad drives her, and then they notice like some creepy guy's looking at us, and like we see, well, like it's her dad, like obviously, like clearly 100%. So like that, I just thought was funny, but also like yes, awkward, but at the same time, it's very realistic to a large degree. So all I'm saying is, I think all those forces combined to just like be the force, the antagonistic element here that I thought was pretty effective.
Hormones and puberty.
Yeah. That's good too. I mean, that's part and parcel.
I was going to say puberty.
Good call, but sure, that's part and parcel of being that age, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm giving it a pretty solid one for that. If you guys have anything to add or anything I maybe missed,
I mean, I think that's pretty much
seems
it.
obvious, right?
Just-
Yeah.
Like trying to navigate how awkward this fucking stage of life is,
Mhm.
and this movie does a really good job of weaponizing
like
the
that.
awkwardness of like being on the verge of being a teenager or whatever.
So cringy.
Yeah.
My high school is this podunk little shithole where it was like 7th through 12th were in the same building. So like trying to hang out with the upperclassmen, we didn't have to go to the mall. They were like right there. So as humiliated as you got for not fitting in with the upperclassmen, you got to do it right in school.
Interesting. I'm giving that a 1 too. But I think we're all giving antagonists a 1, it seems here.
I think so.
All right. And that'll bring us back to Protag, Kayla herself, and that's going to be you, E.
I mentioned earlier that I felt she was very believable as an 8th grade girl and the trials that she goes through. And I continue with that thought and give it a 1. And nothing more to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's well said. A lot of stuff that we just said previously pertains to the protagonist question. Yeah. And you guys know, like, maybe our 0 to 1 viewer right now knows that I'm not normally a fan of child actors, but she's not quite a child. And I thought she did a damn good job. Like, the opening monologue, as you mentioned, Steve-O, was pretty fucking spot on.
Yeah.
And I really, really liked it. And that sort of sold me, like, at the outset.
Then I will give an example here. When she's lying in bed on her phone and her dad barges in, or when she's, in a sense, learning about oral sex
Yeah.
and has the banana, and just those kind of scenes are great. When I know that her dad is oblivious, but she's so certain she got
Yeah,
caught.
because you're so fucking self-conscious.
True.
Yeah.
So true.
Yep.
For sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
you said it pretty well, and I'm, just my little addendum is that. But I think, sorry, Steve, what's her name? The
Her
actress
name
is-
is Elsie Fisher.
Yes, I will give her a damn good amount of credit because she sold it to me like a lot. So I thought she did a great job in the role.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I thought that she did a fantastic job. I think that she's the star of this movie, but
Yeah.
she like really shines through as being the best acted role in
Yeah,
this movie.
I think she owns it.
So, like,
Pretty damn
it's a meaty part, so she's got a lot to
Mm.
work with, but like she does a fantastic job.
Which also
with
doesn't
it.
carry so much of it. too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, there's so many scenes where she's having a conversation with somebody and the camera is so focused on her. So she's got to be like spot on
Mm.
the entire time. And she pulls it off really well. The character herself is so like complex in her, obvious like awkward 8th gradeness like that. Like, all the things that she's going through, if you think about it, are like, yeah, that's the shit that I went through in 8th grade, but like there's so much like coming in from all sides at her and affecting how she's reacting to certain things. And I think that the character and Elsie Fisher do a really good job handling that.
And the
Man.
irony is they're not actually complex problems. They're
Well,
only complex problems
of
in
course.
the context.
Right.
Of
But it always
No,
seems that way when you're
complex thing
fucking
about it is
13.
how much thought and like anxiety she puts into them, and like that's exactly what being that
because
age
that's
is
what
all
you do.
about.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you just you take all these stupid simple things and turn them into like
And-
the biggest fucking
and blow
problems
them
the
up in
world.
your own mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And
I
I was going to get, and part of what Steve said is going to come to style, but like not just the camera, but I mean just the way everything was focused on her. That everybody was, except for her dad and Gabe at the end, everybody was on the periphery. There was no there was no focus on. It was all basically her point of view, more or less.
Even
For
with
sure.
her dad, there were several conversations she has with her father where it's the two of them talking to each other and the camera's only on her. The
Yeah, or he's
entire
like
scene.
he's like out of
You
focus
sense
in the
his-
background
you
or
sense
whatever.
him there, and like it's probably even hard to remember. Like I noticed this very specifically, but if I wasn't like looking out for stuff like this, and I was thinking back about the movie, I would think that they're both there, like on screen. But it's just her, and like it focuses on her emotion throughout like the conversation.
I'll give you a good example just to cap off is when he's driving her to the mall, and it's just her like she's talking to him, but he's not in frame
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, so good
That's
call
right,
there.
that's right.
So yeah, I think that's one's all around. Damn good job.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll bring us to secondary, and that's you, Mr. Steven.
So I think that if it wasn't for her father, Mark, played by Josh Hamilton,
Correct. Yep.
I might give this a 0.
Yeah, I tend to
But-
agree.
He is a great character and only gets stronger throughout the movie. I love how awkward and like dad jokey he is. And like I say, like I feel like this is like maybe with slightly better jokes what Bo Burnham would be like if he were a father.
Yeah.
But maybe he's like, and again, as you mentioned, maybe he's like thinking about his own parents or his own father or whatever, like how he came up. But I love that character. I think it's really the only reason I'm going to give it 1. The other characters are fine. I like some of them. I don't like some of them. But none of them made like a huge impression on me.
Weirdly, I agree with you, but I think that it seems somewhat there's an intent there that who of these people are actually going to leave an impression upon Kayla as
I
things go
agree,
on.
yeah.
I kind of felt that the supporting characters even were kind of important, even if they were underdeveloped, because it was basically how she views herself with regard to them.
Yeah.
So, like, even though some of them may not be as developed as her dad or how they were getting towards Gabe, they were important to her and her development. So I would have given it probably a 1 anyway, because I felt that they were important, even if they were kind of peripheral. And that's all I'm going to say, and I'm going to give it a 1.
Yeah, so like the thing is like they're your stock characters, right? Again, like, you got like the princess crew, the princess girl, and like the hot dude at school that everyone's crushing on, but who also has a dick bag, and like the older teenagers a little bit. And like so, I think I definitely agree with you, Steve-O. Her dad is for sure the standout, and he's also probably the only reason like I'm gonna ride your coattails to give it a 1, because they're the cliche characters that you that you can know and remember from 8th grade.
Well, as I never grew out of my narcissistic phase, all of you are just stock characters in my.
Of course, and
narrative, so-
I'm okay with that. But in this film,
No,
I was
but
surprised
like,
if for any
instance,
other way.
Oh, as Aiden is the hot
yeah,
guy in this. Like most of his characterization is just the music that
yeah,
plays while
right.
when
The
she sees
motif
them.
that
and his eyes.
Yeah, and
That's what you remember.
That's what she remembers. That's what
Exactly.
is important to her.
you're right. Like it's from her point of view, like you said.
Yeah.
Chris.
The other thing I found was interesting, and because they had so many references like Rick and Morty and so many like product placements, it wasn't like a Facebook knockoff. It was that I was pretty sure they probably could have afforded a song to when she does karaoke, but I found it interesting that they had it silent.
Yeah.
Her karaoke was silent, and you could see.
It's a callback to one of her videos that she made. Like, it's her talking over, if you recall, that scene where she's singing karaoke at the party, right? Instead of her singing whatever song it is, it's one of her videos trying to talk about how to be confident, just put yourself out there.
Yeah.
So that was a nice juxtaposition, but maybe that's style, but
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 1 for secondary just for her father. So.
I do have to give a mention to Gabe, who is my second favorite secondary character.
He was the most fleshed out, of course.
He was
Yeah.
just
not really.
he was just a fun kid.
Well, versus the others.
fun
is all.
nerd kid who I think we probably all. Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but
You can speak for me.
I
related to
see
him.
more of myself in
Yeah.
him than any of these other characters. I'll say.
sure.
I saw the dad a lot, and myself. He's
Yeah.
the one I related to the most.
Fair enough.
But
I feel you. So I think it's just enough for a 1. Like,
Yeah.
I was. This is the one I was wavering on, but I think I do agree at the end of the day that on the strength of those two, her father being the number 1 is the reason to give it a 1 for secondary. And you guys are all doing the same, it looks like. And so that'll bring us to dialogue, and that'll be you, Chris.
And I don't have much to say except it was very natural. Even the stops and stutters, and she was giving.
She sounded just like you.
Yeah, on her YouTube.
Her what now?
Yeah, fuck you. Her YouTube provided the inner monologue that we probably all have. Her videos. And that was.
Sorry. Every time you say now, I'm going to relate it to her ums. Etc.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we're all guilty of it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Just because it happens to be you first on this question. Go on.
But the video is important because it did provide that inner monologue that we all probably have in our lives, and that was important. There was one standout line I have to say was when they're having dinner at the end and Gabe's like, I think this conversation's going
really well.
I'm like, all right, for that reason alone, I'd give it a 1. But the thing is, it was very natural. Her inner monologues were her projections when she was out in the real world. Everything was believable. There was no artifice at all in this film, and the dialogue was a strong element to that, even if there weren't any standout lines. And I really have to give this a 1.
Yeah, I got to give Bo Burhnam a lot of credit because, again, it's going to feel stilted when you notice that it's not naturalistic, it's not organic. And this was the opposite of that. It's the opening YouTube video set the tone perfectly for what's how she's going to be as a character. And they're not even really monologues per se in terms of narrative because she's making videos for other people to ostensibly listen to. But really, of course, it's her actual thoughts that she can't express elsewhere.
And like you said with child actors, adults writing for high schoolers or I know this movie was
totally radical, awesome, dude.
I've seen more than once that they said this is what Boyhood should have been. And one of the reasons I haven't seen is because I watched the trailer and it made me want to hit something because you could tell it was an adult writing for high schoolers or whatever. And this they did a really good job. And I know there was times we've talked about it here and other places where it's just like, Jesus, nobody knows how to write for kids. And I felt that Bo Burhnam really knew how to write for this age.
I think
because he's a
channeling.
child.
Yeah, he was channeling, of course, his experience and his personality, I think, to a very large degree, which I think that meant it sold me a lot on the naturalistic feeling of it all.
So I'm going to pull a Chris for a moment.
All right. Pull a Chris. Do a Chris.
I was reading a Robert Patterson novel once upon a time because it was the only thing around. And no, it's really funny when you have an adult writing for teenagers, and it's like let me look up on Google what is the
What's the
hip
kid
new
speaks
thing,
nowadays?
And I'm just going to insert this in here.
Yeah.
And it's just weird because it's obvious that they don't know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
But this felt, again, weirdly... Again, I don't know if this is how kids... But this is how I picture 8th grade kids talking like nowadays. So
Yeah.
maybe I am the dad from this. But I'm going to give his dialogue a strong one because that's the one character I can relate to the most, and it felt like a dad struggling to talk to a teenager.
Yeah, no, as you guys pointed out, like, I think if we would have given it a 0 if it was obvious to us, like, oh, something is off about this. It's not well done. It's like you said, ripped from like Google how do kids speak or whatever. But
How to write for kids.
Hip new things.
yeah, but I mean, I'm gonna give again a lot of credit to Bo on the script because it was so again it felt natural. I was completely sold. I was never taken out of it because of that. Like, yeah, the awkwardness thing, but that again is the point of it. So I'm gonna give a lot of credit to dialogue as well and give it a 1.
Yeah, I agree with that. The dialogue in this film is so awkward that it must be like it feels
Like it
like
must itself.
it feels like it's ripped from a middle school gym or something. Like it's just perfectly. I don't know. It's perfectly. I don't want to say awkward again, but it's perfectly awkward. That's basically what I want to say. And
I'm
it's
sorry.
great.
a certain I don't know what.
No,
Sure,
go
but
ahead.
I was wondering how much this was improvised. Like he might have given them an outline for the dialogue and kind of because
interesting point. Yeah,
yeah, I was that's something that just occurred to me. So
I would
I
doubt
doubt it, but it's possible. I suppose.
with a much younger actor like with mostly much younger actors like that, I would doubt they would give them a ton of like
improv shit,
free reign to write the script themselves. Basically,
Also, it was so much on her and her inner thoughts that
but who knows?
It did feel very focused, but like in a good way. Like it was.
There's no Roma, which
Yeah, sure, but it was. I'm just saying it was purposefully like designed to get you to like buy into, make you think it's very believable, and I think it did its job there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's 1s all around, it seems. Mm-hmm. And that shall bring me to style. So I'm not sure on this one. Like, here's the thing. We're very easily on the path to giving this movie a 10. I don't know if it's going to be I don't think it's a 10 movie, or should get a 10 on our scale. So I was going to take points away in plot. Then I was sort of convinced, or like, I ended up not doing that because I think it was a very solid, perfectly put together narrative. So I was trying to, like, cynically figure out where to take away points. But the style was actually pretty fucking good. There were some cool shots. Yeah. There was some nice like framework, like subtle stuff that you pointed out, Steve-O, like earlier, or like
I'm going to talk about that. Yeah.
So I'll leave some stuff for you. So like, I'm not saying the style was bad or shitty or sucked in any way. So I don't know if I can, in all good faith, give it a 0. But with that, go ahead.
I wanted to talk about, well, one of the other things that's amazing about this movie is the soundtrack. The music is fucking great. But I wanted to talk about the very first scene, her first monologue, where she's doing a YouTube video, and I was like, watching it, I was like, oh, this like pan out is great. Like they do this really slow pan out where she's like slowly,
getting further away.
You're slowly seeing more of the room behind her and like more of her. I was like, oh, that's great. And then it cuts away to a long shot, and she has to like pull her chair back in because she was doing the fucking pan out by like moving her chair back slowly while she's filming the YouTube
It was a really
video.
cool
Like,
touch.
that's fucking brilliant. Like just little stuff like that is so great in this movie. And I cannot in any good conscience give style a 0. I am for sure going to give this a 10 on our scale. I agree. I don't think it should be a 10 movie, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
Sure.
But we always have differentiated, be like, okay, on our scale, it may be higher.
You're right.
So, like, you might, like...
We can leave ourselves an out, if you will, but yeah I get you.
Yeah. So, and I'm just going to add, like, I appreciate that there were no 25-year-old teenagers in here.
Sure.
As Hollywood wants to do. But, Steve-O, I noticed that shot at the beginning, too. That was quite fucking brilliant. I don't have much more to add, except I'm giving it a 1 as well.
All right.
I'm a big fan of Bo Burham's last Netflix special and his style of self-deprecating comedy at times, especially when he goes into that and mixes it with kind of more goofy. I mean, and this really channel that mixture
that
of
kind of vibe. Yeah.
self-deprecation for Kayla, along with really clever comedic elements. And as a comedy, yeah, it's awkward as hell, but a lot of the scenes are very funny, and I have to give it credit for that.
I do agree where I was chuckling quite a bit, and I'll just mention one more, similar to the opening chat, Steve-O, which we did notice. You were like, oh, that's pretty fucking cool. When she's Googling how to give a good blowjob, if you remember, when she goes down to the kitchen, and like the bananas are out of focus, like behind her, and then they come into focus as she's like looking around to figure, like, I thought that was a funny touch, like, all out, you're just saying. So yeah, like, you're right, like, in all good faith, I can't give it a zero to style. I have to give it a 1 for being pretty fucking solid, and for even like above and beyond moments like that. And definitely the soundtrack helps a lot as well, Steve-O. Good call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
All right.
love the soundtrack.
Yeah.
All right, 1's all around. And finally, do you recommend 8th grade, Ian?
I do not. Because I cannot recommend 8th grade, either the movie or the place, to anyone, because it's so goddamn awkward. It took me a long time to watch this. It's good.
Tough, yeah.
I'm giving it full points for everything else, but it's so good, it just doesn't work for me in a way that I have to drop it off. I have to say no.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Chris?
the reason I want to go after you is because my inclination is to say no as well. Like, I don't think I would actively say, like, hey, you have to see this. But by the same token, if anybody said to me, should I see this? I would say yes. Caveat. If you had a shitty 8th grade, you know, give them a heads up. So
Trigger warning.
May I say,
yeah.
1, you want to watch a good coming of age story for a young woman, Lady Bird. 2, I will never watch this movie ever again. Not because I think it's a bad movie. I just could not deal with it again.
See,
I agree.
That's rough because that might have convinced me too. So my usual go-to thing is, if I'm going to recommend it, like, what I want to see this again, like, I can't wait to see it again. Like, that isn't the case for this movie. But as you said, like, it's a really well done movie because of everything we just fucking said. But I may steal a page from you guys and do the same here because I don't really feel the need to watch it and I don't want to, but I enjoyed it when I was watching it, and it was like I said, a well done story and all the like everything we just gave it points for. But I think I will do the same and follow suit with you guys and give it sort of a default 0, just like, and this might be my out again to not give it a 10. Mm-hmm. So I may do that, but Steve-O, you might convince me to not do that.
Well,
not do it in this case.
It's going to be a strong one for me. I'm not going to try and convince you guys the other way. But
sure.
This is and you know, I'm not as averse to things that are awkward as you are, Ian, or perhaps you are, Chris. So like, I will certainly watch this again if it's on. I'm not gonna like go out of my way to go watch it again next week or anything, but
sure.
I would be happy to see this again. I think it's a great film. I think this is Bo Burnham's directorial debut.
I believe it is correct, yes.
He does
if I'm not
a
mistaken.
phenomenal job as a director. I'm looking forward to whatever he's got coming up next. And Elsie Fisher is incredible in this. So, I mean, there's a lot of things for me that I can recommend to people in terms of, you know, why they might want to see this film. That said, I'm not going to try and convince you guys not to feel awkward while watching it. It is a very awkward movie, and if it causes you like physical discomfort to watch, I'm not going to try and convince you to go watch it again.
I got you. Good, Chris.
Well, I kind of fucked myself on precedent because when we were doing the Universal Monsters, I said if you were into, I'd recommend seeing Creature from the Black Lagoon. God damn it! Because if you were into it and you wanted to kind of do a retrospective and to see where a lot of these things came from, yes. And the reason I gave Duck Soup no is because there were so many other Marx Brothers movies that you could tap into. But in this one, I did not see Lady Bird, so I have no basis of comparison.
Oh, you should definitely see it. It's a phenomenal film.
It is on my list. I am definitely going to watch it.
It's $8.24, right? So it should be it should be free on Amazon.
Yeah.
But because of the precedent I sent, I guess I have to say if somebody asked me should they see it, I would issue the caveat, but I would say it's a great movie. And as much as I really want to give this a 0, I think my precedent kind of pushed me over.
Overrides it. Yeah.
God damn it! If I'd given Creature from the Black Lagoon a 0, I could have given this one.
Yo, man, it's cool. You're welcome to change your thoughts on things. Like,
I'm not going to judge you for giving it a 0.
Yeah.
So,
like, yeah, of course, like this may be a much more subjective. Your mileage may vary, kind of a thing. But it's totally fine if you want to switch it up.
I would judge you. I would judge you hard.
We're all judging each other anyways, just like in 8th grade, regardless. So, are you serious? Are you definitely switching now to 1 for recommend?
Go to 1?
Yeah, I'm not going to actively go out and say you have to see this, but if somebody asks me, should I should a caveat and be like, yeah.
All right, I got you.
So yeah, I set a precedent for myself on like.
You guys are both doing 0s?
I'm still sticking with a 0 because I do lean a bit more. Like you almost were the reason I was going to do that originally, but it's tough because again, it's a tricky spot. But I'm going to stick with the default 0 on recommendation. Like
That's
I would recommend.
Yeah,
I'd recommend a lot other movies like on top of this before this one. But if someone's like, hey, is 8th grade good? I'm like, yeah, it's good. It doesn't suck by any means.
I'd recommend seeing this over Bohemian Rhapsody.
Fair enough. Not
I think almost every single movie we ever reviewed, I would recommend over.
But I think
Rhapsody.
actually,
your score on that. Actually, you gave it a little bit higher score than I expected you to give it, and you gave it a 3.
I was going to give it a 0.
Right.
You gave it a 0,
be
talked
sure-
me into a fucking 1, then I had to talk you back into a fucking
be sure to watch our review of Bohemian Rhapsody, but not the actual film. But I will say, like, my final thing is, I would recommend Lady Bird, in fact, ahead of this one. But it's still fine.
I agree.
All right, so with that, let me divvy up and give you the guys the final breakdown. So because of the tail end there, Chris and Steve-O, you have given it 10s, and Ian and I have given it 9s, which I believe is a 9.75 or maybe a little less. 9.5, yes, I'm sorry. 9.5, which is still pretty damn respectable. Yeah, it's a really good film, and maybe almost maybe it's too soon to say that, but I think it maybe could have gotten a little more buzz. Like, it was on the bubble, as I mentioned, almost early on for Oscar possible mix.
I believe the main actress's name I'm blanking on got a Golden Globe nom for.
That's
and deservedly so.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if somebody asked me if I put this on a scale of 1 to 10, it'd probably get like a 9 from me.
Yeah.
Well, it almost did.
But I'm going. But this is by our scale, and we have to.
I hear you.
Separate it from our opinions.
I got you.
I believe it has a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And that's fine. Like I said, it's actually a really good, like almost indie film, even though it's by, like you said, by A24. But
yeah,
that's how it breaks down for us. 9.5 for 8th grade, and there you go. Any final thoughts or any final rants you guys want to make about it?
Nope. Oh, should I tell my story about 8th grade?
No.
All right.
Do it as a separate podcast. We'll tell that story next time on the next show. Leave a cliffhanger.
The next 8th grade movie we do.
Yeah.
But I think that will do it for tonight. For 8th grade, I, of course, have been Scott Thurlow. Been here with Jonathan Ian Manzer.
I have nothing clever to say.
Stephen Amosi.
Have a good life. See you in 4 years.
And Chris Morgan.
Another replacement for Bohemian Rhapsody.
And just remember to be yourself. Good night. See you next time.
Peace and long life.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?